Yeah.
Hi guys, and welcome to our first Zoom chat for SA Cricket Magazine. I'm here with colleague Wade Pretorius. Wade, how have you been managing in lockdown? I'm sure we're all having a bit of withdrawal in terms of no live sport, no live cricket.
Yeah, I think it's not been easy, and that extension certainly going to test our patience. But looking forward to just sort of being patient and getting through this the best we all can, staying safe, staying at home.
Good to hear. So we wanted just to touch on a couple cricket subjects while there's time to reflect and to discuss a few things. And our lead story on Monday on the website was just AB's views that he was chatting a bit about Mark Bouch and just how much respect he had for the new Proteas coach. And we were just chatting about kind of how the Proteas were tracking before they got pulled out of the tour of India. So, I mean, there were some positive signs there, and Bouch certainly seemed to be getting that team on track. So in that regard, a bit unfortunate that, as they were kind of getting that team on the increase, things were obviously kind of out of the blue, pulled out of that tour. And now we have to wait to see when they can next be in action.
Yeah, I think that's a good one to end on there. When will they next be in action? I mean, we really don't know. The Boucher reign offered, it was a bit of a stop-start affair, a lot of praise, but then again, he took over a team in complete turmoil. And the administration was in a turmoil. So I think, though, CSA have done a sterling job of just sort of plugging the gaps and giving us some sort of platform to build on. Obviously, this year is all about the T20 World Cup later in the year. So I think for me, I was a big Boucher guy. That's someone that backed him. I was going to say a fan, but I mean, I don't think that's the right word.
No.
So I think Mark Boucher, he was the man for the job, and I was very pleased. I wrote a few columns on SA Cricket Mag to say that he's the one. I mean, he built up a good track record at the Titans, did his thing domestically, and then was given the top job. And that England series, I mean, it didn't go according to plan for sure. But I think for Mark, he was probably trying to figure out still his best squad, the players he can lean on. And I think that as much as the public is learning about this new team, so is he.
Yeah, I mean, there was certainly, signs that Bouch was getting that change room working together. I just was interesting that AB said he's one of those guys that, when Boucher speaks in the change room, he kind of gets that initial respect. And I watched that documentary recently about what Justin Langer's done with the Australian team. And he's definitely that, I think, a similar sort of character who had that respect from the past and what he did during his career. I just hope that there's as much, technical work being done, because I think while there's definitely that sort of legacy that he brings with him and gets immediate respect, I just hope the team is getting all the technical know-how that they need, because obviously they've had a few guys like Jacques Cullis who's kind of been there in a consultancy role, but not full-time. Do you think every department is getting enough attention with enough, full-time hands-on work?
Yeah, I think that's a question that we need to dig deep into, because when we had the Proteas guys, when Boucher was still playing, when Cullis was still playing, what could you tell Jacques Cullis that he didn't already know when he was a player? You know what I mean? And Hashim Amla and Graham Smith, we were blessed with truly world-class players, guys that their averages we may have taken for granted, and their contributions were so of such a high standard over so long that maybe we got accustomed to it. And we're certainly going through a little bit of a transition now with a different bit of talent coming through, and it is a completely different environment. We did have good coaches back then, and maybe our coaches now is also in a new transition phase. So I think that Boucher, obviously with Cullis getting on board, with Paul Harris getting on board, there's players there with tremendous experience, with tremendous know-how at the very top for a very long period of time, and players do respond well to that. That's a lot of the basis for how Justin Langer has done so well at Australia. I'm sure MS Dhoni will one day move into the coaching dugout when he gives up the game full time. So I think that there is enough talent. Charles Langerfeld's been spoken about very highly. He was someone that could bowl the odd Yorker. So hopefully that is a skill set that's being really focused on by our bowling staff. And I think this is a bit of a group project where where Mark Boucher, though, takes the reins and is overall responsible for the success or the failure of the team.
Yeah, I think we want to keep it quite short and sharp, but maybe just 2 points to touch on is one, do we think that T20 World Cup towards the end of the year, obviously taking place in Australia, I mean, do you foresee any possibility of international sort of competitions being able to take place with all these travel bans? Now, obviously in the rugby sphere, they're talking about the only real likelihood of recent or upcoming action in the next couple of months would only be a domestic competition. So, I mean, that's never something that's really going to get fans excited in a South African cricket sense. You know, obviously, in a rugby context, a big Currie Cup with all the Springboks excites people, but I don't think a domestic cricket competition excites the average Joe in terms of the cricket fan. So we need, I think, you know, an international series of some sort. I just don't know whether T20 World Cup this year is going to be able to take place, or any international competition for that matter.
Yeah, I think the two of us are sports journalists and not medical experts, so we have to leave those sort of ramifications for the health authorities. But how do we get all those different teams from all around the world, all clear, all healthy, by later this year? I mean, there's so many moving parts to this discussion and to this pandemic. I would put my money on the line and say it won't be happening. I think the game needs to be cautious, and the game needs to make sure that when we resume, it's okay and it goes. You know, the worst case scenario is we say, okay, fine, and then 2 weeks in, and the game's about to take place, sort of the first round of matches, and someone comes down with the virus again, and therefore the whole thing gets postponed. People get stuck in travel, like we saw with the Springboks in playing domestic rugby in New Zealand. You know, I don't think that's a scenario that anyone will want, and I don't think that that's something that the powers that be will be looking to risk.
Yeah, and then so just leading on to the final question then, because what AB also mentioned in the quotes that he recently had was saying whether, you know, there's been so much speculation about whether he'd play in that T20 World Cup, and if it took place this year, might be the last sort of event he was capable of playing. So, you know, if it's postponed to next year, that's, you know, gives us maybe another 6 months to a year where he's a little bit older, hasn't played any recent cricket. So it kind of, I think, also diminishes the possibility of AB returning. I think you've had strong views in the past about whether he should be back or back to play at all. I always been of the view that, you know, AB's one of a kind. If we want to have any chance of winning that T20 World Cup, they had to bring him back. But he certainly needed to have some cricket under his belt. And if that's not going to be possible, or if he's a little bit older and not as sharp in terms of his reactions, then I don't think that's something we're going to see.
Yeah, I think I have had views, and I think my views on AB have fluctuated. If you go read that article about where he's talking about Boucher on our website, I think he always says further down there about him being burnt in the past. I think AB's story hasn't been well told, and I think the facts haven't been as clear down this whole timeline of him retiring, unretiring, etc. I think he should have gone to the World Cup, the one-day international World Cup. As you say, if you want to have any chance of winning something, last year, this year, AB de Villiers had to be in the team. He is good enough, we know that. He does need to just put on the national kit or his domestic colours for a bit and show his form that he's capable. And where does that leave us now? Because if there's no RPL where he was supposed to go and then prove that he can still put on the AB 360 show that the world fans love, you know, there are. I mean, I would say that this theme, his story in this, is the big loser in the whole suspension of cricket, because he's now in a race against time. I think he turns 37 in February. So this T20 World Cup this year should have been pretty much the longest. If he can go on and continue to play next year, who knows what might happen. But I think he is running out of time, and my projection is that this T20 World Cup doesn't go ahead, and I'm not sure that we will ever get that final chapter in AB de Villiers in the green of South Africa.
Yeah, which would be quite a pity. But let's nip it in the bud there. Thanks for chatting, Wade, and we'll catch up again soon.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
Cheers.
Cheers.